every time you think that the left and globalists can't go any lower, they manage to go lower. So this may seem like a sensational headline, but we'll read the actual legislation in a moment. Because I know people are going to say it's Breitbart. Breitbart is highly partisan. It's a very right wing website, and that's fair enough. But let's just look at this. Democrat response to coronavirus end Trump's travel bans on China, Iran. House and Senate Democrats are responding to the coronavirus outbreak in the United States by supporting measures to effectively strip President Trump of his authority to impose travel bans to protect American citizens. Now, this isn't an exaggeration. We'll see, this is literally what happened. They aren't really exaggerating. While Trump has implemented travel bans on China and Iran, two of the most corona affected nations in the world, I should add there are also two countries where the governments are incompetent. Well, they're incompetent, but they're also like run a police state. Well, I guess Iran's too incompetent to run a police state, but they're countries where the governments lie all the time. I think they've like shut down the internet in both of them. I don't believe the Chinese numbers, and I don't believe the Iranian numbers. In the case of Iran, I think it's just they have no idea like how many people actually have it. So not only are they like the two worst countries in the world for the coronavirus, but it's probably a lot worse than we know. Like, I trust Italy's numbers. I largely trust America's numbers. I trust Japan and to a certain extent South Korea's numbers. I don't trust China or Iran's numbers for a minute. It's been proven that China like made shit up. Let's see here. The No Ban Act, introduced by Representative Judy Chu. You can't make this up. Judy Chu is passing a bill to revoke the travel restrictions on China. In other words, spreading coronavirus to America make China economy strong. So the bill imposes instead, the No Ban Act would have allowed travelers from Wuhan to continue to arrive in the U.S. while the president received guidance from Congress, aka Orange Man Bad. This bill imposes limitations on the president's authority to suspend or restrict aliens from entering the United States and terminate certain presidential actions implementing such restrictions. A summary of the legislation reads, that's a direct quote. The legislation would mandate Trump only issue a restriction when required to address a compelling government interest. And restricting mass travel from plague-infected regions is not a compelling interest, is not a compelling government interest. Let's see here. Likewise, Democratic Senators Christopher Murphy, Christopher Coons, Dianne Feinstein, and Richard Blumenthal have introduced legislation to stop Trump's recent expansion of the travel ban on some legal immigration from Burma, Eritrea, Kyrgyzstan, Nigeria, Tanzania, and Sudan, along with Iran, Libya, North Korea, Somalia, Syria, Venezuela, and Yemen. Now, I don't think a lot of those countries actually have that many victims of coronavirus yet, but we don't really know because like half of these countries don't even have governments. Syria is in the middle of a civil war. Venezuela has two presidents. Yemen is in the middle of a civil war. Nigeria has a low-intensity war. Iran is collapsing. Libya is having a civil war. No one knows what's going on in North Korea. I don't think Tanzania is in that bad a shape. Sudan is like just had a military coup like last year. Burma has a low intensity, so I don't even know what's happening in Burma. Burma's a mess. So yeah, that's most of those countries, like I said, even though they don't on paper have many coronavirus patients, most of those countries don't have functioning governments. So how would they even know? Like, who would even test it? The no funds, resources, or fees made available to the Secretary of Homeland Security or to any other official of a federal agency by any act of Congress for any fiscal year may be used to implement or enforce Presidential Proclamation 9983, which restricts the entry into the United States of nationals of certain countries. The effort to end America's ability to implement travel bans comes as the number of coronavirus cases hits 1,107 nationwide, including 32 deaths. Democrats' fight to keep U.S. borders open to the world during the spread of the coronavirus was echoed by 2020 Democrat presidential candidate Bernie Sanders this week when he have explicitly stated he would not close America's borders to protect victims from the coronavirus. Let's see here. If you had to, would you choose to close the borders? No. What you don't want to do right now, when you have a president who has propagated xenophobic, anti-immigration sentiment from before he was elected, what we need now is to have the scientists take a hard look at what we need to do. There may be communities where the virus is spreading. What does that mean? It may mean self-quarantine, may mean not having assemblies. But let's not go back to the same old thing. Isn't it interesting that a president who has been demagoguing and demonizing immigrants, the first thing he can think about is closing the border? So we need scientists to tell us the appropriate approach, not a political approach. What if okay, so let's do this. Bernie, what if the scientists say we should close the borders? The thing about that is you can't close the borders. Those scientists are xenophobic. Well, what if it's like a black or Chinese scientist? Well, then they have internalized the narrative of oppression, and this is all part of this is part of Trump's 4D chess plan. Trump's 4D chess plan is to engineer a bioweapon and have it unleashed in China as a way to restrict immigration from third world countries. That is genius. I love how Bernie is so delusional. He thinks that the reason the travel ban came into existence was because Trump hates immigrants. Like the idea that banning people who have a virus that's like asymptomatic for like 30 days from like coming from regions where there's like a massive number of them and test kits that don't even really seem to work. It doesn't even occur to him that that could be the reason. That's how crazy these people. That's how little value they put on your survival. And I want you to take note of these people's names. And I want you to remember who introduced this, who supported it, etc. when this thing is over. Because these are, if your family dies, these people have blood on their hands. Because they had to status signal, they had to say, we're so tolerant, we're so good. We can't ban people from plague zones. That would make us look bad. You know, Thomas Aquinas said the greatest sin was pride, and this is pride, right? This is a man who's so proud, who has such like high self-esteem that he's willing to let hundreds of thousands of America, like God knows how many people suffer and die. And the whole Democratic Party's like that. And don't get me wrong, the Republicans suck too. But they're not the one who is passing this bill to repeal the travel bans. So let's just read the legislation and let's see if like Breitbart did it. So we have Representative Judy Chu who introduced it to make China economy strong. Okay, so let's read the summary. National Origin-Based Anti-Discrimination for Non-Immigrants Act, or the No Ban Act. Like that seems pretty straightforward. This bill imposes limitations on the president's authority to suspend or restrict aliens from entering the United States and terminates certain presidential actions implementing such restrictions. It also prohibits religious discrimination in various immigration-related decisions, such as to whether to issue an immigrant or non-immigrant visa, unless there is a statutory basis for such discrimination, whatever that means. The president may temporarily restrict the entry of any aliens or class of alien after the Department of State determines that the restriction would address specific and credible facts that threaten U.S. interests, such as security or public safety. The bill also imposes limitations on such restrictions, such as requiring the President's State Department and the Department of Homeland Security to only issue a restriction when required to address the compelling government interest, and to narrowly tailor the suspension to use the least restrictive means to achieve such an interest. Wow, that's great. Before imposing a restriction, the State Department and DHS shall consult with Congress. The State Department and DHS shall report to Congress about the restriction within 48 hours of the restriction's imposition. If such a report is not made, the restriction shall immediately terminate. Individuals or entities present in the United States and unlawfully harmed by such a restriction may sue in federal court. Let's see here. DHS may suspend the entry of aliens traveling to the United States on a commercial airline that failed to comply with regulations related to detecting fraudulent travel documents. So I don't know. I think that's pretty clear. There's a lot of legalese in there, but it basically says Congress has final power in deciding whether or not travel bans are in case implemented. And travel bans are something the Democrat Party has said that they're 100% against. We're going to stop this. So you think they're not going to remember what they did when Trump tried to do the travel bans from countries that most terrorists come from? They didn't like that either. So if you don't think they're going to use this to end all the quarantines, you're delusional. So this is insane. This is, like I said, this is how proud these people are. This is how delusional they are. They would rather get the coronavirus and have all of you get the coronavirus than appear to be the slightest bit intolerant. So stay safe, guys. Remember who it was who did this to you. Remember who it was who sold us down the river. Anyways, God bless. Stay safe, my friends. And I'll talk to you later.